Hey guys, how's it going? I actually just got back from locals right now. I ended up going to the tournament today because a friend really wanted to go and I had a ton of fun. I ended up going 5-0 and I won the tournament with Predaplant. Now I am very tired because I had a long day and I didn't get very much sleep last night, but that's fine because I ended up winning locals, which makes it worth it. I'm honestly pretty happy because as you guys can see from my channel, I really like Predaplant a lot. I spent a lot of time making a lot of combo videos on Predaplant with their new support. Predaplant as an archetype got 5 cards individually, but they also got a bunch of other single cards that help them. They got cards like Super Duper Polymerization, Dracena, and Fata Dragna. Now just a really quick side note, I know a lot of people have been using my Predaplant decklist I posted in my combo guide. I've been seeing my decklist on a lot of other YouTube channels and on social media. It makes me pretty happy that you guys are using my decklist and you're having success. Even people on the video were commenting saying that they like using my decklist. It makes me very happy that you guys are finding tournament success using my Predaplant decklist. I know it's just a local tournament, but at the same time, it does make me pretty happy you guys are finding success. I've been reading the comments on that combo guide, so I'm very happy that you guys are really receptive to my decklist. One thing about my decklist that I really like that most people are not playing is Predapruning. Predapruning is honestly amazing in this deck. I know a lot of Predaplant players don't like the card and they'll tell you the card is bad, but don't listen to them. The card is honestly amazing. It's a very saucy tech in Predaplant. Trust me when I say Predapruning is amazing in this deck. You do not want to cut it. The card helped me out so many times in this tournament. So before I explain my decklist and tell you guys what matchups I had to play, I'll just put my decklist on the screen right now. The reason why is because I know a lot of people, whenever they see a tournament winning decklist, they only want to see the decklist. They don't care about an explanation. When you see a decklist live, it's obviously very hard to see their entire list because they have to shuffle through each card individually. I think it's a lot better if I just show you guys the decklist in total now. This is the reason why I prefer to do it this way. Basically, you get to see the entire decklist all at once, which is very nice. I think it's really nice because if you don't care about any explanation I have, you can just take a screenshot of my decklist. This is really good, as I said, because if you don't care about any explanation, now you have a full decklist. I think this is really convenient for people who don't care about the matchups I played, they just want to see the decklist. So now I'll explain a couple things about my decklist, but I'll explain to you guys why I chose Predaplant to begin with. Now the main reason why I wanted to bring Predaplant to locals was because of the new ban list. If you guys didn't see, the new ban list is honestly pretty bad, but there was one really important change. Konami put Synchro Overtake to 1, which is a really big deal. Losing 2 copies of Synchro Overtake is honestly a really big deal because it means now Cooltoon has to play Duelist Genesis. The card is honestly not too bad, but it makes him a lot weaker into Droll. I think Droll and Lockbird is going to be a really good hand trap in this format. I know a lot of people are pretty iffy about the card and think it's not worth maining, but in my opinion, I have a really hot take that's going to be really good in the main deck. When you take a look at pretty much every top tier deck in the meta that isn't Cooltoon, a lot of them just really lose to Droll really badly. For example, Doom Z, they're not the worst into Droll, but they're really not that great either. Then you have other decks like Elfnote. Elfnote is terrible into Droll. A lot of people just special summon Lucina, activate the effect to search for the power patron, and their opponent activates Droll and Lockbird and they're cooked. Other decks like Mitsu, Sky Striker variants, all of them are really bad into Droll. This is why I think Droll and Lockbird is honestly going to be really good in the main deck right now. Even Cooltoon isn't that amazing into Droll. They're not terrible either because they can just open enough monsters in their hand to Synchro Summon. But at the same time, I don't think Droll and Lockbird is going to be terrible. This is one of the reasons why I want to take Predaplant to this local right now, because when people catch on to Droll being really good, I won't be able to play Predaplant. Droll absolutely cooks Predaplant. As I said, this is why I want to play Predaplant right now, while people don't know that Droll and Lockbird is really good. So basically, this was my last chance to play Predaplant before people realize how good of a card Droll and Lockbird is in this format. I had a ton of fun playing Predaplant. I even got to beat Doomsy 2-0. That's a really big deal because I should never beat Doomsy. The Predaplant vs Doomsy matchup is just so bad. Also, as you guys can see, I really do like my shiny cardboard. I do have an Ultimate Rare First Edition Black Rose Dragon and a Clearwing Synchro Dragon. Now, I do have Ghost Rare copies of these cards as well, but I really don't like putting Ghost Rare cards in my deck. The reason why is because it's pretty hard for your opponent to see it in an actual duel. On top of that, in a picture, it's always really hard to show a Ghost Rare because there's a lot of glare on them. This is why I decided just to use some Ultimate Rares. So the shop that I went to play always uses the new ban list, not the older one. So we're playing the new ban list where Draco Tail got destroyed. This is another reason why I felt pretty safe bringing Droll and Lockbird. Droll really doesn't do anything against Draco Tail, but it's really nice because they're no longer a deck in this format. Also, as I said, I feel pretty safe maining Droll because of Synchro Overtake being at 1. If my opponent wants to get access to that, they have to run Duelist Genesis, which is really good. It basically means that playline is now weaker into Droll. So basically, in my old decklist I showed you guys in the combo guide, I had 3 Ghost Spell in the main. What I ended up doing was just taking out the 3 Ghost Spell for 2 Droll and Lockbird and 1 Super Duper Polymerization. The extra Super Duper Polymerization was really good. What makes this card so good is that when you get hand trapped, this card is just a natural extender. You basically summon a Predaplant from your extra deck and then you get the fusion summon. You get to summon Ambu, who's level 5 fusion, who's a play starter. It's honestly a really good card and I definitely don't regret playing the second Super Duper Polymerization. The card is also fantastic because the card is a board breaker and I lost pretty much every dice roll today. I only won 1 dice roll out of 5 games, but it was totally fine. As you guys can see, I'm playing a ton of hand traps in this deck and I have a decent amount of breakers. If I have to go second, it's honestly not a problem. So in this deck list, as you guys can see, we want to play as many starters as we can. We're playing 3 copies of the Spider, 3 Orpheus Scorpio, 3 Dracena, 3 Predator Primitive, and 1 copy of Instant Fusion. So we only have 13 starter cards in our deck, which is honestly pretty low, but I really don't like a lot of the other options. You can play some other cards like Foolish Burial and 1-for-1, but I really didn't like them. Taking a minus off at 1-for-1 already feels really bad, but then if your opponent has Ash Blossom, it feels even worse. You already have to take a minus on Orpha Scorpio, and if that card gets negated, it's pretty sad. Another card I really didn't like was Lone Fire Blossom. Lone Fire Blossom is a pretty good card because it can summon any of your plant monsters from the deck. The problem is when that card gets hand trapped, you're in a lot of trouble. Lone Fire Blossom has to tribute itself for cost, so if it gets negated, then guess what? You don't have a monster on the field. The best extenders in this deck are the Lizard and Super Duper Polymerization, and neither will work with Lone Fire Blossom. Now, one of my favorite things about my Predaplant decklist is how few bricks I'm playing. You have one copy of Byblyphs, one Lizard, one Darling Cobra, one Preda Pruning, and Fusion Sub. That's only 5 bricks in this deck, and it makes me very happy we can run a low amount of bricks. I see a lot of other people play like 8, 9, 10, 11 bricks in their deck, and that's just way too many. In a competitive deck, you want to try to keep the bricks as low as possible. The problem is in Predaplant, a lot of the bricks are just pretty bad. You basically never want to see Byblyphs, Fusion Sub, or Darling Cobra in your hand. Now, I'm very happy about the hand trap lineup in this deck because I can fit so many. We're able to play Fuwalos, Ash, Dominus, Spark, and Impulse, and we also have Droll and Lockbird. Being able to run 14 hand traps is pretty good in my book. On top of that, we also have a lot of breakers in this deck. We have 2 copies of Super Polymerization, 2 copies of Super Duper Polymerization, Talent, and Fallen and the Virtuous. It's really nice because you can access a lot of these cards in your engine, but drawing them is also really good. You're never going to be upset seeing cards like Super Polymerization, Super Duper Polymerization, or Fallen and the Virtuous in your hand when you go second. That's honestly one of my favorite things about this deck. Being able to play first or second is awesome. Having cards like Super Polymerization and Super Duper Polymerization are insane. It's very hard for your opponent to play around these. Super Duper Polymerization and Super Poly are very effective against a lot of decks in the meta right now. Super Poly is really good against Cool Toon because it basically means they can never end on a board with more than one monster. Cool Toon has a really hard time going first against this deck because when they leave more than one monster on the field, a lot of the time you can Super Poly them. A lot of the cards that Cool Toon end on in the extra deck are dark monsters. Cards like Remix, Sailing, Back to Back, and RS are all dark monsters. You can basically Super Poly those with cards like Mud Dragon, or you can also use Starving Venom. On top of that, I'm playing a couple more extra deck monsters in my side deck to make Super Duper Polymerization better game 2. Basically, when your opponent knows you're playing Predaplant game 1, they're going to be a lot safer into Super Poly game 2. They're basically only going to leave one monster on the field. A lot of the time, it's either going to be Remix or Trackmaker. You can actually beat both of them. In the side deck, I have 2 cards for this. I have Panzer Dragon and Gold Pride Eradicator. Now, the only reason why Gold Pride Eradicator is here is because this card is a Dark Warrior monster who's not level 5. You can actually make level 8 Synchro really easily, but this card almost never comes up. I can basically never summon it because when I activate Preda Primitive, I'm locked into Dragon and Plants. However, in the very rare situations where you're not going to be locked, this card is honestly pretty decent if you can summon it. However, the main reason why you're running this card though is for Super Duper Polymerization. It basically will give you a target for Remix. Remix is a Dark Warrior and so is Gold Pride Eradicator, so it's perfect. Now you get to fuse away their only monster on their field. Now Panzer Dragon's pretty good. I'll talk about this card more in the Doom Z matchup, but this card's a light machine. The card is also a level 5, so it's a different level than Trackmaker, which makes the card a perfect Super Duper Polymerization target. When you Super Poly your opponent's board game 1 against Cool Toon, they're always going to be very wary about the card game 2. This is where Super Duper Polymerization comes in. They're almost always going to end on either one of Trackmaker or Remix. That's why Super Duper Polymerization is so good, you can fuse away with either of them. It's kind of funny because everyone talks about how broken Super Polymerization is, and the card is really broken, but I'm honestly really liking Super Duper Polymerization as a breaker more. The card is honestly just really good game 2 when your opponent is really afraid of Super Polymerization. Super Poly is also really good against Elfnote and sometimes Doom Z. Now I say sometimes Doom Z because it really depends on their board. It also depends how knowledgeable your opponent is. If you're playing against a really bad Doom Z player, then you can Super Poly them, which is really nice. It's honestly really easy to tell if you're playing against a really good Doom Z player or you're playing against like a middling player. You can tell whether or not they leave Drastia on the field. If you're ever playing Doom Z, you should never leave Drastia on the field. You should always make Drastis on your own turn. The reason why is because Drastia is a Dark Dragon, which is really important if you have Super Polymerization in your hand. A really common board in Doom Z that they almost always make is Regulus plus Drastia or Drastius. If they leave Drastia on the field and they don't summon Drastius, it's really good. Now they can also have the Utopia Ray card in the field and Varugis, but they usually don't have the cards if you're playing a lot of hand traps like I am. When I played against Doom Z, my opponent could never make the full board because I always had at least 2 hand traps in my hand. Now back to the really important thing about Drastia. If your opponent leaves Drastia on the field, it's really good because you can actually Super Poly this. Because Drastia is a Dark Dragon, you get a lot of different choices for Super Polymerization. If they have Varugis on the field because they have 2 Dark monsters, you can make Mud Dragon. This is because Drastia is a dragon and Varugis is a worm. Now I'm also playing Panzer Dragon in the side deck. This one will also work. This one will let you fuse away Drastia and Regulus. Now why are you able to do this? Because Panzer Dragon requires a machine and a dragon. Drastia, as we talked about before, is a dragon monster and Regulus is a machine. This will basically give you 2 ways to break the board with Super Poly. Now there's a really easy way to beat Super Poly in Doom Z. It's honestly really simple. Basically, instead of leaving Drastia on your field, you just make Drastius on your own turn. The reason why a lot of Doom Z players wait is because you get an extra interruption if you leave Drastia on the opponent's turn. However, in my opinion, I think it's really greedy and very bad. This is why you never want to leave Drastia on the field. You always want to make Drastius as fast as possible. You also always want to activate Doom Z Destruction as soon as you can on the opponent's turn. This is because the card will prevent your opponent from adding a card from their deck to their hand. That that is insane because every deck in Yu-Gi-Oh has to add from the deck to their hand to function. A lot of decks will not be able to play if you get this card active. So my opponent went first game 1, but it was honestly really easy to break their board. Basically, by taking away the Doomsday monster on the field, they cannot activate Destruction because they don't have a Doomsday Xyz monster. I basically was able to break the board after an OTK them. So because I won game 1, game 2 I'm also going second again. Now this is really bad for my opponent again because I opened Droll and Lockbird in my hand. That was really bad for my opponent because the starter card in their hand was Terminus. They basically could not build a very strong board. It's really bad for the opponent to get hit by Droll and Lockbird if they open Terminus. The reason why is because they still get Medius and they still get the Doomsday Power Patron, but it's not that great. Ideally, you really want to open with Alara if your opponent has Droll and Lockbird. So I'm very happy I got to 2-0 one of the hardest decks for Predaplant. Another deck I got to play against post Banlist was Vanquish Soul Canine. It was pretty interesting. The deck doesn't have Naroi now, so I really want to know how they function. A really funny thing I learned though is that Predaplant really don't care about Ripper. A card like Canine Ripper is really strong against a lot of decks, but Predaplant really don't care. Ripper is honestly just really bad against Predaplant because almost always the first monster you send to the grave is going to be Biblips. It really doesn't matter if Ripper can negate a card in the grave because you already got the search. It's honestly pretty interesting because Ripper gives a lot of other decks a lot of problem but not Predaplant. The first monster that you almost always send to the grave is going to be Biblips and you activate that card's effect. By the time they summon Ripper, you can honestly out the card really easily. The Spider is really good to bait out the effect of Ripper because all you have to do is activate the card's effect in the grave. You banish the card from the grave and now you get to place a Predator counter on Ripper. Obviously your opponent's going to have to negate that because if they don't then you get to tribute over the card. You're going to have instant fusion and the level 5 Predaplant fusion and that card can tribute Ripper. This is only if the card has a Predator counter though. So basically all you have to do is activate Spider, force the opponent to activate Ripper and negate that. But if your opponent doesn't negate that, guess what? The Ripper has a counter and you get to tribute the card. It's honestly pretty surprising to me how easily Predaplant can out Ripper. Now another deck I played against I thought would be a lot better was Elfnote. I am honestly very underwhelmed by Elfnote. I thought they would be a lot stronger. I know we don't have Baron the Fleur in the TCG, but at the same time Elfnote feels really weak. When I fought against Elfnote I beat them 2-0 and they feel incredibly weak to Full Walls and Droll and Lockbird. If you guys haven't seen, I posted an anti-Elfnote Droll and Lockbird combo because everyone plays so hard into Droll. It seems like a lot of people don't know that combo though because every time I see an Elfnote player they always play so hard into Droll. Even against my opponent they opened Tenia and they still played really bad into Droll. Another thing about this deck is they feel really bad into pretty much every board breaker. Super duper polymerization really hurts them because you can get rid of Dawn Dragster or Crystal Wing. You guys can leave a comment if I'm wrong, but Elfnote really doesn't seem that strong this format. It's pretty surprising because the general sentiment from people is that Elfnote is really good. I'm just not seeing it when I fight against them. I really don't think Elfnote are going to be that great in the TCG without their new synchro. But like I said, you guys can leave a comment if you think I'm wrong and you guys can tell me why you think Elfnote's a top tier deck in this format. Anyways, I'm really tired here so I'm probably going to wrap things up. Now I'm just going to leave my deck list on the screen one more time just in case someone wants it. If you guys are curious today, I played 5 rounds and I only lost 2 games. The only 2 games I lost were against the 2 Cool Toon players. Doomsday, Elfnote, and K9 Vanquish Soul I beat 2-0. I also only won the dice roll 1 time so I only got to go first once. So basically I had to go second game 1 4 times. Anyways, like I said, I'm really tired but hopefully I can edit this video and have it up really soon. Also, I'm really happy you guys are doing well in tournaments using my deck list. If you guys ever enter a tournament and you run one of my deck lists, I'd love to hear so in the comments. So that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a good one and I'll see you guys for the next video. Take care guys.